What do you
Okay, Parshas Chayei Sarah begins. Vayu Chayei Sarah mea shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chayei Sarah. The years of Sarah's life were 100 years and 20 years and 7 years. Shnei Chayei Sarah. These were the years of Sarah's life. I heard once it was in yeshiva, a guy went to the mir from America. This has nothing to do with the parsha. I just know it's a cute story. He didn't speak. He tried to speak to him in Yiddish, ask him how old he was, and he didn't know Yiddish. So then he spoke like in Hebrew, modern Hebrew. Asked him how old he is in modern Hebrew. He didn't know modern Hebrew. Obviously, the rabbi didn't speak English, so he figured the guy learned Tanakh. So he asked him like Kama yesh shnei chayecha, which literally translates to how many are the years of your life? You know, like when you read Tanakh, it goes like that. Mm-hmm. But okay, so here it says what Rashi points out. It says, and she was 100 years old, and 20 years old, and 7 years old. So why does it say that?
Because she was alive in all of us. She had a what do you call it? She was alive in all of us, and she left the trails of her accomplishment because she was married to the first Jew.
So that's true. Actually, what you're saying, it's true what you're saying, that all the
that's what I'm saying.
All the forefathers, what they accomplished. Why are they forefathers? What makes them forefathers? Because everything they accomplished became part of the DNA of the Jewish people. For example, Avram Avinu. Avram was a Baal Chesed. He had the attribute of Chesed. So the pshat is not.
There's a lot more than Noach did.
And faith in Hashem. So the pshat isn't that just, well, we learn from Abraham, who had a lot of Chesed, but since Abraham was our forefather, that means that attribute of Chesed and kindness was put into every single Jew for all time. Every single Jew has that natural affinity to believe in Hashem and to do kindness. That's why you have so many people now in Israel who are coming back to Hashem, because when something unfortunately something bad happened, but people said, wait a minute, deep down, everyone knows, even if they don't practice the mitzvahs on the outside, deep down, every Jew knows who he is and has this deep faith. That comes from Abraham, like you're saying, from our forefathers. But here there's an extra thing here that it says she's 100 and 20 and 7. So Rashi writes, that we should learn something from each thing. She was 120 and 7. That tells us that when she was 100, it was like she was 20 in sin. A person is only liable, right? You became a bar mitzvah, so you are required to do mitzvahs. But what you don't know is another age of a kind of a bar mitzvah, which is when you're 20. You're not liable for the heavenly death penalty until a person is 20 years old. So you still got a few years. That's when you're considered like totally responsible. So when she was 100 years old, she was so pure that she was like 20 before she was even liable for anything. She was innocent as a child. And then it says, Ma bas chaf lo chata.
Right, is a 7-year-old, not the 20-year-old.
Okay, a younger person, I should say. A younger person. Av bas kuf below chet. She was 100, she had no sin. Ubas chaf kebas sheva liyafi. Now, there's an interesting thing here, which always bothered me when I read this Rashi. When she was 20, it was like she was 7 for beauty. So, what is that? First of all...
You said at 20.
Oh, so what you said is what Rav Moshe Einstetter, who is a big Torah scholar, Talmud Chacham, who lives in Cleveland, he wrote a book on this. It's the first question he asked. What do you mean? A woman is more beautiful at 20 than 7. And also, why do we value beauty here? What is physical beauty? I'm pretty sure in Judaism, I've studied a lot of Judaism, I'm pretty sure I don't see...
spiritual beauty.
So we'll see. But here, it sounds like it's saying physical beauty. Also, you'll find that many times in the Torah it describes the imahos, our foremothers, as being very beautiful. So as far as I know, that's not something that we value. Physical beauty is not something that we should value. So why does it say that? So there's a Gemara. It says the Shufra, the Rav Kahana, the beauty of Rav Kahana, who was an Amora, rabbi in the Talmud, in the Gemara. Me'ein Shufra the Rav Yavo, was like the beauty of Rav Yavo. Shufra the Rav Yavo, Me'ein Shufra the Yaakov Avinu. The Shufra, the beauty of Rav Yavo, was like the beauty of Yaakov. And the Shufra the Yaakov Avinu, Me'ein Shufra the Adam Arishon. And the beauty of Yaakov was like the beauty of Adam. So, what's that talking about? So, Rav Einstetter explained as follows. Said, when there's a harmony between the physical and the spiritual, and a person is so refined in his spiritual self, it will express itself even in the physical. So, for example, this Gemara that's talking about the beauty of Rav Kahana, was like the beauty of Yaakov and like the beauty of Adam. What's it mean? Yaakov Avinu, our forefather, was one of the holiest people who ever lived, one of the people who was closest to Hashem and who had the most refined character traits of anybody who ever existed. And what about Adam? Adam, before he sinned, was the ultimate human being who was the ultimate spiritual being that ever existed, even greater than Moshe. The Ramchal writes that before Adam sinned, we wouldn't even be able to see him with our physical eyes. That's how holy he was. That's the sublime nature that he was.
We had a time machine, we couldn't go back in time and see him.
Well, we wouldn't be able to. We wouldn't be able to see him. Because our physical eyes, he was on such a holy level, our physical eyes wouldn't be able to perceive him. Adam, before he sinned, was even holier than Moshe, the holiest Jew. So we're comparing the beauty of these great rabbis who worked their whole lives to get close to Hashem and perfect their character traits and perfect their study of Torah and to focus on their spiritual lives. They were on such a level that resembled Adam before he sinned, which was a beauty that we can't even comprehend, a holiness which you can't even comprehend. So the same thing here. Of course, a woman is more physically beautiful when she's 20 versus when she's 7. But a 7-year-old is so pure and innocent that the beauty that she had at 20, that was like you were saying, the spiritual beauty expresses itself in the physical. That usually see you by a little kid. I know you see like a Jewish kid in Cheder. There's a glow in their faces. You know, there's something there. There's a shine that they have. There's a physical beauty that comes about because of the harmony between the spiritual and the physical. So that's what it's saying about Sarah, that her spiritual perfection was so powerful that it shone through her physical, to the point where when she was 20, it was like she was an innocent Jewish child, and that's what it's saying here. I've told this story many times, but I really like it. I've seen this. I brought someone to see Rav Elyashiv. Rav Elyashiv is one of the most unbelievable people I think that ever lived. He passed away about 10 years ago. You know, they told him when he was a young man, he had diabetes, he wasn't very healthy. I think the doctor told him like he's not going to live a long life. I think he passed away when he was like 103, something like that. And he just his whole life he just sat and learned Torah. And people from all over the world asked him questions. My rabbi used to ask him questions. He said, and people would also ask him very silly questions. He never lost his temper. He was the calmest person ever. I saw a video of him, and he was also like, I don't quote unquote, put in quotes, like a normal person. Like he didn't sit, on some like high rabbinical table and He was just a humble person. And you see him having conversations with people. Like you're having a conversation with your friend. He was just so friendly to everybody. So I used to go to his house sometimes when I was in Israel, and I brought my friend to him, and we saw him for Havdalah after he made Havdalah on Shabbos. And my friend just looked at him and he goes, David, the rabbi's glowing. Like there was a glow, there was something there. It was just like the holiness shone through. And also a photographer in Israel told my Rosh Yeshiva, she said, the big rabbis, they glow. There's a glow. There's a certain spiritual beauty they have. She says she can't always capture it on film, but she likes to try. Okay, fine. Also, in the next verse, it says, V'tama Sarah passed away B'Kiryas Arba, who Hebron, which is Hebron, Be'eretz Canaan, the land of Canaan. V'yavo Abraham lispod l'sar v'livkos sa. Abraham came to eulogize her and to cry over her. So if you look in the Chumash, the Chaf is small. And to cry over her, one of the letters is small. Why is the letter small? So the Vilna Gaon says when a person dies, we mourn for two reasons. One, the body isn't here anymore. The person is not here, which we're very sad about. It says also we mourn because the things that the soul did not accomplish when it was in this world. Right? The person could have died and he didn't accomplish everything that he or she was supposed to accomplish. But the Vilna Gaon says that Sarah completed everything that she was supposed to accomplish. So that's why the Chaf is small, to signify that they were only mourning the fact that she wasn't physically here anymore, but they weren't mourning that her soul didn't complete everything, because she really completed everything that she had to accomplish. And that's really how we should view our lives. Our lives here, we're here to accomplish things. We're here to accomplish spiritual pursuits. I was just talking to someone the other day. I said, I understand when I was a kid and all my friends, we were all into video games and wasting time doing that. What I don't, we all waste time. Everyone wastes time. But just to have, when you get older, you get to a certain age, you don't start to think, we're not going to be here forever. Like, what are we here for? What should we be trying to accomplish? Even so, we know this. Those of us that know this, we also waste time. But just the idea, like, do people think? I always wondered, do other people think about it? Like, this doesn't pop into their head once in a while. So I think it does. So some people ignore it and they try to push it away and try to distract themselves, and some people do something with it. But we're here to accomplish things, spiritual accomplishments, to study Torah, to do mitzvos, to raise a family in the way of Torah. That's what we're here for. That's our whole purpose. And we could always feel good knowing that every second of our lives is dedicated towards that purpose. Certain people, when they retire, their whole purpose in life was to make money on Wall Street. Now they retire, they have no purpose. So how many vacations and cruises can you go on? So they get depressed. A lot of old people get depressed. But if your purpose in life is that every second should be used to accomplish spiritual things, you never get depressed because you always have a purpose, you always have a mission. That's why it says, I think Rav Hirsch says in this week's parsha about Abraham, that Abraham utilized every second of his life, and he says we don't just get judged in our lives what we accomplished. Right? We get judged in every moment of the day. Did we utilize that moment of that day to do what we're supposed to do? You can't just say like, oh, I'm going to take today off. I'll learn Torah on Friday, but Thursday is my day off. No, we're going to get judged in every moment. Obviously this shouldn't be making us neurotic or anything, but the idea is that every moment of our lives has a purpose, has things that we could accomplish. Okay, now, so Sarah dies, and Abraham needs a place to bury her, so he goes to Hebron, and he wants to buy the cave of Machpelah. He ends up buying the cave at an exorbitant price, and the Torah goes on and on and on. Hello, there's cholent over there. Sorry about the time confusion. But enjoy the cholent. There's a lot of cholent, so you have to eat a lot of it. Only Arnold's my friend, because only he has taken so far. Everyone else, you're not invited back. Okay, so what are we going? What's this idea about Machpelah? The Torah is talking about it for a while. Why is the Torah spending so much time speaking about it? Right, you have certain halachas, certain laws that are learned from like an extra letter, in the Torah. But here we have a few pages about Abraham buying a plot of land. And it doesn't seem like such an interesting story. Yeah, he got cheated and he was very honest in his business, but what's with the length of the thing here? Also, this interesting thing. Okay, that's one question. Another question is, did you know? You haven't learned Kedushin yet, yeah? Whereas Hashem, you'll be in yeshiva many years, you're going to be learning Maseches Kedushin. The first page of Kedushin, it's the Maseches dealing with how to get married, how to halachically get married. So on the first page of Tractate Kedushin, it says that we learn out the marriage procedure from this story of Abraham buying the cave to bury Sarah. Why is that? Another question, interesting point.
The Arabs dispute that.
Yeah, they dispute a lot of things that are against reality. I've learned in the past few years that people have no problem contradicting reality. That was a few weeks ago we talked about that. The other question about Machpelah is, did you know Abraham had 10 tests? So most commentaries say the 10th test was the Akedah, the binding of Isaac. Which seems to make a lot of sense. That seems like the hardest thing to do. Rabbeinu Yonah on Pirkei Avos actually says the last test of Abraham was buying the cave from Ephron. So why was that such a hard test? Okay, so we have three questions we want to answer. One, why is the Torah talking so much about buying this cave? Two, why do we learn the marriage procedure from the cave? And three, why was such a big test? So I'm going to start by answering the third question first. Rabbi Frand asked this question: how could it be harder than the Akedah? So he says, similar to what we were discussing before, people think, he says, in their retirement, you can just sit back and relax. He says, look at Abraham here. All the tests that he went through. He had to leave his family, had to go to a land which Hashem will show, Israel. Sarah gets kidnapped. He brings his son up and is about to sacrifice him. Hashem says, Ki ati yadati ki yara l'kim ata. Now I know that you are a God-fearing man. And then he thinks he can finally relax.
Is that Hashem who said that, or was that
an angel? An angel, but an angel will only say it from Hashem. Angel is the messenger of Hashem.
Oh, and right. They get them. Okay, they speak to.
Right, angels do messages for Hashem. So he thinks he can finally lay back, relax a little bit, and then his wife dies, and all he wants to do is just bury his wife. And this guy gives him a hard time. This would be the perfect time for someone to say, you know what, God, enough already. Just enough. I did everything you want me to do. Just leave me alone. He said that is a very hard test. People think after they've accomplished something, they've worked, they've retired, now they can just sit back and relax. But the test is that no, even in those times when we think we've done it all, that Avram kept on going, no matter what. He thought he could relax. He thought, I just passed the hardest test. No. Nachamol, something else happens, and he never gave up. And the message is that every point in our lives, we have to grow spiritually.
Sorry, Rabbi.
I heard this from a friend of mine, Alvin, actually. He said that life is like a down escalator. Right? If you're standing on a down escalator, you're going down. The only way you're going up is if you're climbing up. As soon as you stop, stay still, you're going down. If we're not growing spiritually, then automatically we're going down. We always have to have that in mind. Again, not to be neurotic, but just to have the idea that we should always be growing spiritually. And he said, you ever heard of, Rabbi Friend said, you ever heard of a Rosh Yeshiva who retires? Right? My Rosh Yeshiva is in his 90s, Shmuel Kamenetsky is probably around 100 now, right? Rosh Yeshiva don't retire because there's no time to stop. When you're living a life of dedicated to spirituality, dedicated to character improvement, dedicated to studying Torah, there's no stopping. Okay. So that's one thing. That's the other thing. Why does the Torah talk so long about it? So the Malbim writes that there's a very important idea that Abraham was trying to establish by spending so much money on a burial plot and by the Torah writing so much about it. Because he wanted to show that the soul lives on, and he wanted that idea to be in the hearts of people, that the soul lives on. Right? Many, many people think that this world is it. After, boom, kaput. I don't understand why these people don't go insane, because, why? What are you here for? Just, there's no purpose in life then. Anyway, but we believe that there's a soul. So being that there's a soul, the body, which was a receptacle, which was a kli, which is a vessel for that soul, needs to be respected. It needs to be buried. So Abraham spent so much time and effort making sure to buy a burial plot for Sarah, and the Torah writes so much about it in order to put this idea in people's minds that the soul lives on. We're not here just for this world. Now, what does this have to do with marriage? It's an interesting idea I read from Rabbi Naaman. So there's a prohibition in the Torah of lo tisgodedu. A person, when he loses, God forbid, he loses a loved one, what people used to do is they used to take hot combs and used to rub it against their flesh because they were so pained at the loss of their relative. So there's a prohibition in the Torah to do that. It's one of the 613 commandments. Lo tisgodedu, not to do that. Why? Because, a person loses a loved one, it's very sad, he's not here anymore. But we know that the soul lives on. The person isn't totally gone. So if a person is mourning beyond what's normal, only people that believe that the person's gone forever would take these hot combs and inflict such pain in themselves to express their mourning to such a level. But a Jew, when he loses somebody, chas v'shalom, knows. What? Right, they tear kriya just on the outside. Right? Because even though the person is gone, is not here physically, and that's very painful, so we tear kriya. The person tears kriya, chas v'shalom. But we know that it's only the physical body which isn't here anymore, but the soul lives on. So we don't mourn more than necessary. Now, it's interesting. Do you know when we apply this verse of lo tisgodedu? It happens twice a year. It happens very often in shuls where we apply this verse of lo tisgodedu, which seemingly has nothing to do with mourning over a person. So this actually happened at Aaron's bar mitzvah. There's a custom. People have different customs on Chol HaMoed Sukkos and Chol HaMoed Pesach to wear tefillin or not. This is the most common example I think that comes up. So in many shuls, Chabad, they were very chilled about it. Many shuls have the custom that the people who wear tefillin daven on one side of the mechitza, and the people who don't wear tefillin daven on the other side of the mechitza. Why? Because it doesn't want to look like you have two different customs in the Jewish people.
Segregations.
Exactly. Actually, I heard in Ner Yisrael, they had 6 minyanim during Chol HaMoed, during COVID, because they had the COVID minyan for tefillin, the COVID minyan non-tefillin, people exposed to COVID with tefillin, not exposed to COVID non-tefillin, and then they had the people who weren't exposed to tefillin and non-tefillin. Something crazy.
So the law keeps it simple.
Right. It's a custom. It's a custom to keep it separate. So what does it have to, what does lo tisgodedu, this prohibition of excessive mourning, have to do with having different customs? So the Avnei Nezer writes, because on the level of the soul, the Jewish people, we're all connected with our souls. We just have separate bodies. So we don't want to make it look like we have separate customs, even though we know we have separate customs because the Jewish people have been dispersed. Your family's from some random Russian place. I'm also from some random Russian place, actually. Bukharians, Ashkenazim, I don't know where you are. Eretz Yisrael. Where are you from?
From Moldova.
Moldova? Okay.
Moldova.
Boring. No Persians here, anything exciting?
Once it's coming.
Okay. So we all have different customs, but on our basic level, all the Jews, all of our neshamas are connected. So we don't want it to look like we have separate customs. So that's why there's a custom based on Losis Godadu to daven in separate minions. Because Losis Godadu tells us that the neshama lives on. That's the whole concept, that we don't inflict excessive pain on ourselves for mourning, because we're showing that the soul lives on. So too, we don't want to show that we have separate customs, because we're all connected with the same soul. And that explains why we learn out the marriage from here, because in a marriage, two neshamas, two souls get connected. Right? Two souls join together and join as one. That's why specifically we learn out the marriage process from Ma'aras Machpelah. Okay. So let's go on. So then after Sarah passes away, Abraham sends Eliezer, his faithful servant, to find a match for his son Yitzchak. And it says, Avram zaken bo b'yamim v'Hashem berech es Avram b'kol. Avram was old, and Hashem has blessed him with everything. V'yomer Avram al avdo zakan beso. And Avram says to his servant, the elder of his house, Hamoshel b'chol asher lo, who ruled over everything he had. We don't realize that Avram was one of, if not the wealthiest person of his generation. He was the Elon Musk of his day. Yeah, he was a very wealthy man.
How did he earn so much?
Hashem blessed him with everything. Hashem blessed him. So Eliezer was in charge of the entire empire. Imagine Elon Musk would just say, "Okay, I'm appointing you to run what's the car company? Tesla and Starfleet. What does he have? SpaceX. I'm thinking of Star Trek. Right? I'm appointing my servant to run everything.
And the ultramarine things.
That's what Abraham did. But then he says, when it comes to finding my son a wife, he says, Simna yoncha tachas yirechi va'ashbi'acha b'Hashem elokei hashemayim v'elokei haaretz asher lo tikach ish levni mibenos haKnani asher anochi yeshiv b'kirbo. He says, put your hand under my leg and swear to me that you won't take a daughter of Canaan for my son, for Yitzchak. Swear that you do this. Now, we'll talk specifically why. Hopefully, I'm not sure if we'll get to it. The Canaanites were much, much worse. Yeah, and I would, if we have time, we'll talk about why the Canaanim were so bad. But the point I want to make here, I saw also this from Rabbi Friend, is we only find here that Abraham made Eliezer swear when he was finding a daughter-in-law, finding a wife for Yitzchak. When he had him running his entire empire, he did not have to swear, he just trusted him. So with this, Rabbi Friend quotes Reb Chaim Soloveitchik, who says a parable. He says, imagine you come to a town, so you go to a random small town, and you're starving, and you want to eat. So you go to a restaurant, and it says kosher in the window. So you have different types of people. You have one person who says, it says kosher in the window. I'm sure it's fine. Right? As we know in Alpin, if you do that, you would have been in big trouble. Then you have another person. He's not so trustful of a sign, so he'll talk to the people who work there. He'll try to figure it out, and then if it's good, he'll eat there. Then you have a third person. I know a lot of people like this. Not only will they ask the people, they'll call up the local rabbi, and they'll call the OU, they'll call the Star K, they'll find out all the issues involved in this restaurant they don't know, and only then will they feel comfortable when they eat there. That's one scenario. 3 different types of people. Now, Reb Chaim Soloveitchik says, now, what if you go to a small town and you're not hungry, but you want to start a business, and you want to partner with somebody? Anybody in their right mind would drop $100,000 for a business venture to partner with someone that looks trustworthy? Guy looks trustworthy. He wears a suit, works in the bank. I'm sure he's fine. Nobody in their right mind would do that, right? Everyone would be that third guy. Call his references, find out about him, find out everyone who knows him, look into it. To some people, when it comes to kashrus, whatever, it's just kosher, they don't care so much about it. When it comes to business, everyone, they're not going to lose their money. They're going to be super careful. So he writes that Abraham, when it came to his empire, all of his financial dealings, Okay, he didn't care so much. He just trusted Eliezer. When it came to finding a daughter for his son, which was to guarantee the spiritual vitality of the Jewish people, then swear to me, promise me, you may take an oath in the name of God that you're going to do it. That he took very seriously. Right? And we could see in our own lives what things that we take seriously. It's good to pay attention, and I'm sure, which one of the three are we when we go to a small town and we see, Vod of Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. I'm not saying there is one word. Vod of Timbuktu. Can we trust the kashrus? What are we going to do? How important is kashrus to us? How important is everything else to us? So that's the point that Reb Chaim and then Rabbi Fran makes. Okay, I'll just conclude with you, just because we mentioned it. I'm not going to really get into it. There's a lot to say on it. But what was so bad about Canaan? Why didn't Avram want a daughter from the people of Canaan? And Eliezer was from Canaan, and he had a daughter. He would have been very happy to marry his daughter to Avram's son. So the reason was, if we remember back in the Parshas Noach planted a vineyard after he was saved from the Teva, after he was saved from the ark, and his nakedness was uncovered. And Ham went and told everybody, whereas Yefes and Shem went and covered up their father. Ham was the grandfather of Canaan. Ham and Canaan, they signified a group of people that don't value human dignity, and because of that they were cursed. Because someone who doesn't value human dignity means they don't really value what a human is. They just think a human is a two-legged animal. There's nothing. Of course. They don't value what a human being is. The Jewish people, the integral belief in Judaism, the essential belief in Judaism is that a human being is totally different from an animal. We have an neshama, we have a divine spark, and that divine spark yearns to get close to Hashem, to subjugate ourselves to God, and to live for spiritual values. Such a being, a spiritual being, is embarrassed that he shares anything with an animal. Why does everyone naturally want to embarrassed about being naked, right? I don't know about nowadays. Most normal people are embarrassed about being naked, because that represents a part of us that we share with animals. We have animalistic drives, and it's a breach of our dignity. It's a breach of our dignity to go out naked and expose those drives, because we're more than the physical. We're more than a human being. Canaan, which doesn't believe in that, or doesn't act on that difference, the Jewish people could have nothing to do with. That's why it was so abhorrent for Avram to even think of taking a daughter from Canaan to for Yitzchak. Okay?
What about idol worship?
What that he...
Weren't the Canaanites idol worshippers?
That too, but we see that also Rivka's family were idol worshippers. It seems that that's not as bad, because that type of thing you could change. Right? That just comes from messed up views. But it seems that certain character traits are somewhat harder to change and more ingrained in a person. So Avram wasn't worried that Rivka would have been influenced by the idolatry at that point. There are those that say, it needs to be explained a little bit, as the Ran says that, even though they were idolaters, Rivka's families, that really at their core, since they came from the same family, they had positive character traits, positive midos. Okay, with that, please eat more chalent, and let's go make tzitzis.